my distinct pleasure to welcome to the stage Sharon Stone.
Thank you. If I could just get my kids to do that.
I'm just going to say what everybody is thinking right now. You look spectacular.
Oh, gosh. Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, so let's get the
My
ball
mom
rolling.
and dad did it all by themselves.
Why did you want to introduce this film?
Oh, so many reasons. Just so many reasons. First of all, I was that kid that never went outside but spent every Saturday morning watching old movies.
None of these people can relate.
Yeah, I was the one whose ex-husband is probably ex because he finally said to me, "Can't you watch anything in color?" But I'm also a big Marilyn Monroe fan. And I really feel that Marilyn has gotten such a weird rap. It's like everybody wants to make her something wrong with her. Too fat, too skinny, too crazy. Well, you know, it's just amazing how many geniuses were in love with her and would just marry her and chase her around from end to end if she was such a mess, right? Or that she was able to greenlight so many pictures if she was such a disaster. And when you think about a film like this, you think about the other disasters, like the great John Huston, who was away gambling the production money away in Reno. Or you think about Clark Gable, who didn't get along with her, but you know, he was pushing 60 and still wearing the pencil mustache. And I'm sure that her little bowl of buttercream was pretty threatening, because she was getting a divorce and very, very, very vulnerable, and exactly what was happening in the film was happening. And that's unnerving. To have that kind of beauty and wonder, and a person who's willing to stay in a state of wonder in front of you when you're shutting down for 1,000 different reasons, which all these men around her were, has to be incredibly threatening.
And which is the theme of the movie.
And which only Thelma Ritter really seemed to have a handle on.
Yeah. I'm glad you brought that up, Sharon, because it was Marilyn Monroe who told Arthur Miller to write that part into the film specifically for Thelma Ritter.
We needed a voice of reason, right? The film would not have had a rudder.
Yeah, exactly.
You know?
Can I ask you kind of a weird personal question? How much do you relate to her in this film? Because when I think of you making Casino, right, in Nevada, they're in Reno, you're in Vegas, you're surrounded by all of these, I mean, there is a lot of testosterone running through Casino, and here you are giving, dare I say, the best performance in the film. And do you feel that similarity?
Well, you know, I played her twice. I also played her when I was quite young, when I was about 24. I played her in a television movie where James Earl Jones played Don King, and Rock Hudson played the part that Bob De Niro played in Casino. And I played her much younger, obviously, when she was a cigarette girl. And so I had already tried on this character, and I had known her in her youth. So I knew my way around this environment very specifically because of Rock Hudson. Because I didn't know my ass from my elbow when I showed up in Vegas to play her. And Rock was so wonderful to me. And he called me my little Dickens. And he would tell me every morning we would have breakfast together before we'd go to the set. And he would come to my room, I would order breakfast for both of us. I would have already gotten up, whether it was 3:30 or 4 o'clock in the morning, whatever it took. I was up and I would have worked out, showered, and had breakfast ready, very elegant breakfast, and Rock would come to my room and teach me how to do my scenes, whether he was in them or not. And he taught me my job, Rock Hudson.
I just have to ask, how many people in the audience have not seen the Misfits before? This is a first time. Okay, that's a fair amount of you. This is
So lucky.
Well, yes, because this is the way to see it if you're seeing it for the first time in a brand new restoration, which is spectacular. But this film to me is interesting because it has a legend about it because of the lives of the people involved, and that there's a little, it's like death is stalking everybody in this film, actually. But I don't think that as many people have actually seen the movie as are familiar with the legend of the making of the film and the legacy of, Clark Gable, sorry, this is not really a spoiler, but Clark Gable would die literally days after finishing making this movie.
And Eric Dane lived in Clark Gable's house.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Well, that can't top you.
In his cottage in Beverly Hills, which was so beautiful.
I just learned from Sharon that she actually lives in Montgomery Clift's house.
I do. I do.
Yes.
I do. I bought it. I bought it after Basic Instinct because it had a big gate, but it was in complete disrepair. And it was subdivided into two properties. The main house and the pool house and the pool and the guest house were a separate address. So first I bought the main house, which was down to the floorboards and had just bathrooms and a kitchen. But that's what I could afford, but I needed to get behind a gate. And then years later, I bought next door and uncracked the swimming pool. And of course, I saw all the photos and videos of just everyone swimming in that pool, which is just nuts. And so I restored it exactly how it was, which made people crazy because they wanted to make it modern. And I was like, not so fast. We're not going to take the genius out of the pool.
Very good. We like people who want to preserve the past. That's kind of what we do here. So we appreciate that. Marilyn gives an extraordinary performance in this film.
Oh, my God.
And it's remarkable to realize, I consider this John Huston's John Cassavetes movie. Because so much of this, okay. So much of this film was, I'm not going to say it was improvised, because Arthur Miller didn't improvise things. But it's very, very raw, and Arthur Miller, and when Sharon was referring to, her divorce was pending, and all, it was from Arthur Miller, who is the screenwriter of this film, the first screenplay that Arthur Miller had written. And it's so interesting to see a film where obviously someone who had written for the theater, because it's very, even though this takes place in the great outdoors, much of the most crucial action takes place indoors in very cramped spaces. But Arthur Miller knew the marriage was falling apart, and it was.
She asked him to write for her, and she didn't like that he wrote this. Horses, crazy horses and men out in the middle of nowhere. She's like, you could have made me a scientist, you could have made me a doctor, you could have made me anything, and this, she was furious. That's part of why she was spiraling, they say.
Exactly, and he had gone to Reno to get a divorce in 1956, and then wrote a short story based on the experience of meeting these cowboys and things, and then he called this his Valentine to her, but it's also the breakup letter simultaneously. And it's like I mentioned, I felt you react when I said death kind of stalks this film, because all the players, except, God love him, Eli Wallach, who lived to be almost 100 years old, Clark Gable would die literally days after finishing making this movie. It was right around the corner for Monty Clift, and of course, 18 months later, Marilyn would be gone. I recently rewatched this film, and I was fascinated at the way she is treated in the movie by the writer, by the director, by the way the camera ogles her at times in the movie. And it has its cake and eats it too, because it does that, but it's aware that it's about how the men react to her. Gee, Sharon, can you relate?
You know, for so much of my career, I was given these parts to play, and I just would think, oh my God, like no woman acts like this, right? And I would have to come up with reasons why, because I would be playing prom queens and like all these, but many things that you could play without very many clothes on. You pick it, I played it. And I'd have to figure out, why would they be doing this? And I think, oh, well, they must be drunk, high, crazy, psychopath. And so I developed this lane of playing drunk, high, crazy psychopaths because it was the only way to justify the crazy bullshit way that women were written. Because I never got any scripts that I could relate to, like, oh, I met someone like that. I know women like this. You know, and I even told a director once, no woman is gonna do that. My mother would be appalled if I did this. And he said to me, next time, get a better mother.
Unbelievable. Wow, you've shocked. I'm rarely speechless, as you know, but that's appalling. That's
I mean,
appalling.
there are the things people do, but there are the things that people say. And you know, I find that this idea of women is very different than how women are. And I had the most fabulous acting teacher. And at one point he told me that I had graduated. I was like, I haven't, I don't understand it. I don't know what the fuck is going on. It hasn't clicked in. And he was like, well, you've done everything except the men's classes. And I'm like, okay. He's like, okay, what? I'm like, okay, I'm gonna do the men's classes. And he was like, okay. And he's, I want you to do one more women's class first, and then you do a men's class. And I ended up, first thing in the men's class, I did Mammoths, Gary Glenn Ross.
Oh, holy cow. You talk about a testosterone-infused piece of work, yeah.
3 weeks later, I got Basic Instinct. Because I stopped pandering. I stopped doing all of that crazy bullshit that the male gaze puts in the writing for women. And I just went in and played her the same way I would if she was a man. Just, oh, I know what you're doing. I know exactly what you're doing. Oh, you think you're making fun of me because I'm a woman. I'm aware of that. Now let me explain to you what you're aware of, right? So that was all it took. It was 2-3 weeks with a Mammoth piece, right? Because he's the greatest writer, right? So now I've just gone and done a film with David Mamet, which was wonderful because every day he would just make up lines at work and I'd be like, you just made that up. Like right now, standing here looking at me, he says, go say that. And I'd be like,
it's interesting. I'm sorry, this is a detour I didn't think we would make, but William Macy once said to me, it was like, what's the hardest thing about doing a Mamet play? And he said, remembering the lines. And he wasn't joking. He said because David is so specific, or was, perhaps he's different now, but he...
Well, and also there are lines like, fuck, fuck, fuckity, fuck. Fuck, fuckity, fuck, fuck you, you fuckity, fuckhead. And you have to get the right amount of fucks in there, you know what I mean? Because
Well,
it's rhythmic.
you'd already worked with Scorsese, so you were ramped up and ready to go with that. You know?
Marty, when instead of action, because I was so cranked playing that part, he would come over and he would go, okay, everybody, quiet on set, we're rolling. And he'd look at me and he'd go, lock and load.
You didn't think you were going to get that in a thing about the Misfits, did you? But you... Okay, before we have to wind up, I'm sorry to say, but last thoughts about this film and the lasting legacy of this movie.
John Huston.
Whom you knew.
Whom I met and spent a day with. I got a call that John Huston wanted me for an audition, which was just inconceivable. And I had just gotten his autobiography. And I put it in a bag and I he was at the Beverly Hills Hotel, and I thought, okay, there's gonna be 3,000 girls that are all blonde and look like me, and they all want the part. And, I'll just wait in a room all day and, look at me from afar, right? This is what I anticipated. So I go there, I'm in the lobby, I get a call, come on up, knock on the door opens, John Huston. Not a secretary, not a waiting room, nothing, just him in the doorway. Meanwhile, he's like 6'12". It was just, he was leaning in the doorway, like so cool. Opened the door, hey. I was like, hey. He's like, come on in. And he just took 2 chairs and pulled us up knee to knee. So meanwhile, my knees are like right here with him, and I was just looking at him like, oh. Because I'm a big reader, and if you've read Treasures of the Sierra Madre, and you see how it starts, and then you watch the movie, like it exactly walks, like the first paragraph is exactly the way the movie starts, and it's unbelievable. And if you're a literary person like I am, and then you see his movies, they really are, you could see why Arthur Miller wanted to work with him, right?
He is the best adapter of literary works in the history of motion pictures.
Hands down. And he said to me, tell me a little bit about yourself. Right, and I said, there's just nothing interesting about me. Tell me about you. And he went, oh, well, all right. And he just told me about himself for like some hours. And it was mind-blowing.
That's called a man.
It was so crazy. And so now, of course, I know his children, and I'm friends with them, which is also mind-blowing to me. And I tell them, I knew your dad. It's just so crazy to me that I live in Montgomery Clift's house, that I met Arthur Miller. I was at a party, and he and his wife drove me home one night in the 90s after Basic Instinct. Talk about a conversation where no one speaks. And these legendary people, like, I'm from nowhere, Pennsylvania. Like, I was performing in the truck headlights in my driveway, trying to get attention as a kid. And I got to meet these people, and now I'm here with you. And we're announcing the Misfits for American Turner Movie Classics. This is like mind-blowing to me, who lived, I could just cry, who lived for this, who made my career because I was in love with Humphrey Bogart, who had people tailor my jackets to be like Humphrey Bogart, who knew everything about Spencer Tracy and Katharine Hepburn's love affair. Like, this to me is like unimaginable. And I hope it is for you too. I really hope it is for you too. Because it's a dream come true. So I hope you enjoy this film. I hope you notice all the little nuances, because while it's Arthur Miller's words, it's John Huston's directing, and it's called show business, not tell business. So notice the things, the nuances, the things that happen. Notice how Clark Gable ultimately lays down on that horse. It's just the most beautiful, poignant moment, and how everybody takes it. Just notice. Notice how everybody starts to come to terms with their life and who they are, and how they're digging in like the horses. Notice this thing that happens as we all come to understand ourselves a little better through them.
I hope you appreciate that Sharon Stone just gave you a concentrated emotional history of what Hollywood is all about. I'm from nowhere, and now my dream has come true. That is the history of Hollywood right there encapsulated, and I can't think of a better person to do it. You are so fabulous. You are so fabulous. Ladies and gentlemen, Sharon Stone.